Hello everyone, it's David here with your weekly episode of Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in to join us, especially as it was one of those games where you don't feel like getting your head out from under the covers for a few days after it. Joining me to discuss Rangers 1-1 draw with Hearts, what it says about our season so far, and to look ahead to Thursday night's Europa League tie with Brondby, crucial Europa League tie with Brondby, is Andy McGowan. Andy, the sage of Saltcoats, how are you?
I'm very good, David. Hello, listeners.
Yeah, I'm a bit better now because there are very few things in life that are more deflating than conceding a last-minute goal in a game that you absolutely categorically should have been up the road in 20 minutes earlier. And that's what happened Saturday. So I'm sure most of our listeners are aware or will have seen the game. Rangers Hearts on Saturday afternoon. I must admit, I thought in the first half, Rangers' best performance of the season so far. I thought Rangers were aggressive, they were controlled, they were hunting the ball down, they were winning it back, and they were threatening. Had a 1-0 lead at half-time, deserved a great goal by John Lundstrom. Probably should have been at least another one or two up. Second half started flatly, and I don't think Rangers ever really got back the intensity that they had in the first half. But with that said, having watched the game back, I felt that we were still in control. Hearts weren't making chances really up until about the last 15, and Rangers still were, and missed several glorious chances. And sure as fate, 90th minute, concede a set piece. It comes across. Alan McGregor makes a rare error, and there at the back post was Halkett to nod home, and Hearts managed to get away with a share of the point. Lots to discuss, Andy. Of course, the thin line between success and failure, but that's football, and especially at Rangers. Had Rangers taken one of those chances, including the one I'm sure everybody is thinking about, which is the gilt-edged open goal, really, that Alfredo Morelos misses with a few minutes to go, then we're probably sitting here today going, that was a really good performance and much more like it and getting back on track. But we didn't, and we're not.
No, and that's it. And as we know at Rangers, it's a tough gig. The support don't tend to, how can I put this without offending every single Rangers fan in the planet? We tend to lose balance sometimes when we're on the end of something like that, when we have a last
goal. What you say right outside you?
And I'm not saying that I set myself apart, but I do say that 2 or 3 days later I can kind of collect a semblance of perspective. But the final whistle on Saturday, I was the same. I was like, I wouldn't say we saw it coming because I thought we were going to hold out, but to do that in the same manner as a Motherwell game, very, very unusual. And since then, I've watched the game again. I've kind of scrutinised it a wee bit. I'm a wee bit relaxed about things because I think, as you say, David, that first 45 minutes, we've been harking on about last season. Where's the intensity? Where's everything from last season that we're doing well? So what we were doing well last year is we had a really aggressive press, and our football in and around the box was exquisite, and that's been missing this season. We've seen it in tiny glimpses, but the full 45 on Saturday had both of them, and Hearts get very, very lucky. And I think the other thing that's been levelled up at Rangers since Saturday has been, we need to do this for 90 minutes. Well, actually we don't, because 99 times out of 100, you have a 45 minutes like that, the game's done, and you just manage the game. Because I don't think it's possible for teams to play like that for 90 minutes. So Hearts get lucky is my summation of the first 45 minutes. They were lucky to be alive at half-time. Second half's a different question altogether, David. I'm sure we're going to speak about it.
Because we can't take this in isolation. Great, the first 45 minutes, absolutely. But there have been 45 minutes throughout this season, various 45 minutes. First half against Motherwell, a game you mentioned, was terrific. Second half against Hibs was terrific. But we haven't played a full 90, I think, all season. Maybe Celtic, maybe. But that was more a backs to the wall, half the team injured type performance, which was great, and you need those. But it wasn't Rangers at our fluent quality best. But I don't think we've seen the team play a full 90. And right from the start of the second half, you could see it. The first 5 minutes, you could see that we just weren't snapping into things the way we had in the first half. That leads to concerns, of course, about, is that a mentality thing? Is it a fitness thing, Andy? Is it not being able to replicate it for a full 90 minutes?
I think our fitness has been very good over the piece, but last year was the kind of, that'll never be beaten, right? And I think not just for fitness, but in every aspect, it's going to be very, very hard, if at all possible, to replicate most of the things we were doing last year. And our big strength last year was getting a goal. And if you scored first, we were winning last season. There was no really any question about it. And what we're doing now is we're losing some goals that we're not losing. I mean, you look at even Malmo and Ross County was a really good example, losing goals up there that we should never have lost. And that is, I don't think that's down to fitness, Dave. I think that's down to intensity, focus, desire, things like that, the things that get you over the line. So I don't think it's fitness. I don't think we're as fit as we were last year. I know that's a contradiction, but last year we had the greatest ever pre-season. You've seen it for the friendlies before the season started. They just had so much time to work and a kind of clear diary to get things ready and get everybody into peak physical condition. Not been the case this year because you've had the Euros. There was always going to be a hangover for last season in terms of the physical exertion we've put into it. We're missing key players. We've probably not had the squad that we want, although we've still got an exceptionally good squad. The availability for key players has been minimised. Kent's been playing where really he shouldn't have been playing. We found that out after the Celtic game. Ryan Jack's been a miss. Arfield's not really been there before wee niggles and illnesses. So I don't really think it's fitness, David. I think it's down to expecting to do what we did last season in terms of defensive stability. But the bottom line is we need to score goals. We need to score the second goal. We've only won by more than one goal this season twice, and that was opening day against Livingston, wasn't it? And then up at Ross County. And that this far into the season is quite a telling statistic. I think it's and then we've got Dunfermline for all you pedants out there. I know that we've got League Cup, but really we should be scoring more goals for a team that's set up as we are. We've spoken about it before. A front three, front four, whatever way you want to put it, brimming with talent. We should be scoring loads more goals.
Well, on that, and this was asked to the manager after the match at the weekend. Rangers have played 9 matches in the Premier League so far, 15 goals. Now, to put that in context, that's the same as Hearts that we played at the weekend. That's the key issue, because although we can point to defence, the defence is conceding more goals than it did last season and more than we would like them to, absolutely, but we're not leaking goals. 7 in 9 games domestically, not great, but equally nor is it losing 2 and 3s every week or every 2 games. So Rangers should be able to concede occasionally and still win, and at the moment it seems like we aren't. 15 goals in 9 matches. When you take away the fact that we did get 4 at Ross County, that leaves you with and 3 in the first day of the season. Well, there's nearly half your goals in 2 matches, which means in the other 7 you've come up with 8 goals, and that's the problem. It's that simple, and it's not even a lack of chances. I think sometimes when you look at that kind of statistic, you say, well, it's the whole team. And that is fair, because everybody needs to chip in with a goal. We know that, absolutely. But I'd argue on Saturday the midfield was the one area of the pitch that did work. I thought Lundstrom, and I think most people would agree, was the best player in the park. I thought Kamara, certainly for the first hour, was terrific. I thought Aribo, was dangerous. It was up front. And of course, on Saturday, that really fell on Alfredo Morelos, who had a horror of a match in front of goal, and he had 7 opportunities and didn't hit the target with one of them, and his shooting was miles off. It is October, and there does come a point when I understand fans' frustration, because you can use and this is not just at him, Ruth's missed the sitter, by the way, at the end as well, one you would expect him to score. But at this stage of the season, I'm not sure how long we can keep going, well, they didn't have a pre-season, well, they didn't have that. No, we know they didn't, right? And that's a shame, but here we are, and we need more than we're getting from the front players. At the moment, they're all decent players, right? Buzzed about well for an hour. I thought Hadji worked hard. But at the moment, you don't look at any of our front three, say, going into that game going, he's going to get a double today. He's going to, they're not giving you that confidence.
No, you're 100% correct. And Morelos, I'll go straight to Morelos, right? Because he's obviously the focus from Saturday because he's misses, and rightly so. However, and again, I'm going to fight with the planet's Rangers fans. We see with Tavernier, we've seen it with Goldson, we see it with Morelos now, that as soon as they have a bad game or have a couple of bad games or make a mistake, then, drop them, bring somebody else in. Morelos is utterly integral to the way we play, and when we don't have him playing, we are a different team and not for the better. And I thought he is off the boil by comparison to previous seasons, not just last season. And and Saturday was a real, it was an aberration for him in terms of chances missed and the types of chances he missed. Because I thought the cut back for, who was it? Was it Ruth that cut him back? And maybe I can't remember, but I cut back to the byline and he just sclaffed it. I thought that was just as bad as the one he missed at the end, because usually, he dispatches that. But I knew my Gerard kept him on because it was a physical game. I mean, Hearts were rough and tumble. Although they played some good football, they were quite a physical team, and Suter and Halkett are strong, and we needed that physical presence to hold the ball up. Now, it wasn't doing that either, really. 9 times out of 10, the ball was bouncing away.
No, it was bouncing off him, yeah.
And that was half our problem because we couldn't get up the park. But I think it's, even in his poor season, I think it's an outlier. I don't think that he plays as bad as that often. I don't think he misses any chances. I go back to what I said earlier. Hearts get lucky. They get lucky. A number of things went right for them. And Morelos had a poor game. I'd start him without question on Thursday. I'd start him on Sunday at St Mirren, Morelos. And I think he'll come all right because strikers will have games like that. And I think we don't need, let's just not lose our shit over Morelos. Right? I don't think Sakala's ready. We've seen Sakala and he seems quite raw for a guy at 24, 25. And I don't think he's ready to step into his shoes. And I think we'd be yearning for Morelos back for a number of things. But I totally agree with what you're saying, Davey, about the front three, Wright and Hadji. And I spoke about Hadji on it was a post-match. It's part of Prague. I was pretty harsh on him. He's still not a killer. And I know he contributes. He still contributes as a wee bit of he's a ghost. He comes in and scores important goals. And he does good things and he does work really, really hard. I cannot fault that. However, his pace isn't there. I'm sorry to say it, I'll keep saying it. His pace isn't there and it's going to hinder his career, never mind his Rangers career. And there was a couple of chances. There was one in the first half, he cut in after some beautiful play and he cut in at the edge of the box. Could have taken another touch or two and just slotted it into the net. But he kind of snapped at it and at the end it was a pretty weak shot. Wright's the same. Kind of flatters to deceive, does some good things, but once you get to the kind of business end, I don't want to say chokes, but he's not got a tremendous shot or a tremendous finish. They need to do more because when you've got a front three set up as we have, the three need to contribute. They will be who we live or die by. And Saturday was a perfect example. So, let's get Kent back. I think there'll be no more people doubting the quality Kent brings and what he actually does. I'd quite like to see Sakala get a shot even for the last 20 minutes. And Roof, for me, Roof has to start. I know he didn't start Saturday because he'd been in Jamaica, which is really frustrating. But I think Roof off of Morelos gives us 2 bona fide goal scorers. And Roof, as his record speaks for itself, is he's a finisher. I think he's the best finisher we've got after Defoe. So I like to see him incorporated into the front three whenever fit.
There's a couple of things that you brought up there that I want to mention, so I just took a note to make sure I don't forget any of them because you know what it's like when you start hearing stuff like that and I can go off and froth in about 6 different directions. So I'll try and keep to each point. And the first one is you mentioned Kent. Absolutely, because what Kent does is drag us up the park quickly. Even when he's not at his best, he drags us up the park quickly. What Kent does is mean that teams can't come as far, and it's another question about why we allowed Hearts to come forward as much as they did in terms of us sitting back. We sat far too deep towards the end. I get human nature and whatnot, but Hearts were able to do that confidently because of a reason you touched on. There was no pace in the Rangers attack at all by the end, and Hearts knew this. So under normal circumstances, the likes of Suter, Halkett, etc., their midfield, they see Kent there loitering and they go, a couple of us, in fact, have got to hang back here, and it pulls you out the park. Kent is absolutely vital, even when he's not at his best. He keeps going as well, Kent. That's the thing about him, is even if he hasn't had a successful run in the game, in the 83rd minute he still wants the ball and he still wants to go and try it.
Yep.
And
never hides.
No, and we missed that badly at the weekend. The second point about the striking options, this I think became and has become clear at the moment that we don't have a lot of options in the goal scoring department. We've got Morelos and Roof. And Morelos hasn't been at his best. The manager said afterwards, he admitted that. And Roof, there's always been issues with him, be it injury or whatever, coming in and out of the team. He's not somebody you can bank on, unfortunately. I wish we could, but so far in his Rangers career, he's not somebody we can bank on to be available every week. I said at the time, and I wonder about it, that I thought letting it go without somebody coming in seemed strange to me. And I thought Saturday was a great example of that. And look, I'm not going to sit here and kid on and say that Cedric Itten, is a top goal scorer yet or whatever, but he could have come on and contributed, if nothing else, as an out ball, because he can hold the ball up. And as you said, it was bouncing off Alfie. The other thing was you touched on, and it moves into something in the second half, and a lot of fans picked up on this, and this is not hindsight because, I said it, Martin and I were sitting talking about it at the game. Twitter, my chat groups, a lot of people said this. The substitutions towards the end, and Martin asked the manager afterwards, were the substitutions made with conserving the lead in mind? And what the manager said was, well, look, Bacuna we put on to try and add that bit of quality to get the goal. And to be fair, Bacuna has put through two through balls that should have been the end of the game. He did what he was put, and you can criticise his, if you like, some of his defensive play. That would be, I think that would be valid, because he still needs to learn. He looks a bit dozy at times, and he's not up to pace with Scottish football when it gets frantic. But even in among that, he has produced two balls that should have been the end of the game. And so, fair enough, right? I don't have a huge problem with that. The other two substitutions, obviously, were brought on, the players were brought on to try and, I think, see the game out instead of the game. And the manager actually spoke about why he took Aribo off, and he said because at the Barry Mackay chance, he's ghosted past Joe, who can't put a tackle in because he's on a yellow. Right? Again, fair enough. But it got me thinking, last season, we would have had another two subs.
Yes.
And I think you would have seen Patterson, and I think you would have seen Sakala to bring you that pace that we didn't have at the end when it became clear that we needed an out ball. And I think that there's no point moaning about it, because it is what it is. Football has been three subs for years. I'm just saying it was something that we used very well last year that we can't use this year, and I think it is a factor. And secondly, the big complaint, I think, from fans was Morelos staying on, because your point earlier is spot on when you talk about normally if he's not at his best in terms of goal scoring, and that's as bad as he's been, by the way, in terms of goal scoring in a long time. He doesn't play like that every week. You're correct to say that. Normally you'd expect him, even not at his best, to tuck one of them away. Look at Hibs a couple of weeks back, right? However, it wasn't sticking with him, and we needed something up there to go and do that. And I think that was why people were surprised he came off ahead of, he stayed on ahead of Hadji or Wright. Neither of whom were brilliant players, don't get me wrong, but equally it did seem a bit odd, because we did keep hitting the ball to Alfie and it kept bouncing back, and it just kept bouncing back. And I think that those were frustrations that, I go back to this, it's a cliche, but the thin line, if Alfie tucks that sitter in at the back post at 2-0, the manager's vindicated, but he didn't, and he's not.
And this is why I go back to saying Hearts were really lucky, because the chances don't normally all get missed. And I totally agree with you, the Cedric Itten thing, because he was the closest we had to a like for like for Morelos in terms of, exactly what we're talking about on Saturday, whereas Morelos kind of kick his own arsehole. So what do? You want somebody that can bring on, play centrally, hold the ball up. Really, Sakala's only. I mean, Sakala's looked all right holding the ball, but it doesn't seem ready to be relied upon. he still looks to me as if he needs to be nursed into being a Rangers player, which is understandable. So loads of things there you've got bang on, Davey. The substitution, I commented on Twitter, and yes, I am back on Twitter, folks. And my ego can't stand having 1,000 followers, so please follow me. Please search and follow me. But I don't think it's Bacuna himself is the problem, because as you say, he came on, and what I've seen of Bacuna so far is he's not going to be a Kent or a Wright and gets the ball and strips somebody for pace and whips the ball in. He's a thoughtful player, looks very, very silky, and most of, I think, his danger comes from his passing ability as opposed to anything else. And as you say, he came on, and it was kind of forgotten in the melee after the game on Saturday that he actually created 2 fantastic chances with brilliant passes. But what also happened with him was that intensity of press that I was talking about earlier on, that Wright gave us, and Hadji, to be fair to him, gave us also, it totally evaporated down our left-hand side and their right-hand side. And the boy Smith went as wide as you like, and moved up, and it just kept coming and coming and coming. And Kamara was getting dragged out for the middle to the wide, which he's usually good at, right? But it was giving us problems, and we weren't getting that break. So you can kind of give up that territory on a pitch and draw them out if you've got the ability to hurt them on the break, because you will find the space they're giving up you can take advantage of. But Bacuna wasn't that kind of player for me. So the first substitution, I thought that kind of tipped the balance. We were 20 minutes still to go. It was a long time. It tipped the balance. And then the 2 other substitutions, I didn't agree with Rebo, but when I had seen the press conference and Gerrard, that's why he's a manager and we're sitting in the stand, Davey, is that, the yellow card was quite right, because I thought Robertson was equally honking to both teams in some of his decisions, but I can see why he did that there, because it's a liability. But what it did in the last 10 minutes is Lundstram kind of disappeared, because I think even so early in his career we can see that him and Davis are far, far too similar. And Lundstram is exquisitely good when he's played as a number 4, and he's allowed to dictate play and move from 18-yard box to 18-yard box and link everything up. And I think that stopped at that point, because Davis, we kind of lined up 10 yards further back than we had been, and we weren't moving out as quick. So the substitutions, it's easy, Davey, in hindsight to say, the substitutions and the rest of it, and you would have done things differently in hindsight. And I would have liked to have seen pace. Our bench should be seen as kill teams in the last 20 minutes, not see as wilt, as the phrase I used on Twitter. And I thought Sakala was the option. I think you could play him left.
The way they were coming out, Sakala could have come on, if nothing else, just that Kent thing of keeping them honest.
Attack the space.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And again, look, it is a thin line between success and failure. If we get the second goal, then nobody's really talking about the substitutions. Nobody's really, that. But that's football, and it certainly is football at Rangers. Just a very disappointing display. There's been a lot of talk about the central defence this season. Understandably so, because we all know the script with injuries and suspensions and whatnot, COVID and whatnot. It's changed constantly, and that's never good. At the weekend, I felt we need to talk about the fullbacks, and this is a tough one. Firstly, I don't think Bourne has played well this season, really. Some moments of quality. Hibs delivers an absolute worldie of a ball for the winner. But overall, I don't think he's at his best, and I don't think that's unfair. Tav is not playing well. He really isn't. And this is a tough one to talk about, because with certain supporters, there are certain supporters who have completely and utterly made their mind up about Tav and are polarised on it. And never the twain shall meet, as they say. And for those of us who are maybe in the middle, there's a section of our support who just have never and will never at this stage take him, and it doesn't matter what he does. That they are looking for a mistake, and they'll always, there's some talk about it's his fault for the goal on Saturday because he leaves his man at the back post. It's McGregor's fault for the goal, right? Anything else after that is just an additional thing. Could he have maybe done a wee bit better? Possibly. Does he have a thing of leaving guys at the back post? Yes. Why aren't we putting men on the posts? But, McGregor is the one to look at that. And I'm certainly, by the way, not going to go at McGregor. He's enough credit in the bank. Even Saturday, he proves that. It's a very rare error from. but he's not playing well. He's not getting forward with any great effect. He's not driving the team on the way he can. But you get these camps, and there's the one that, we should get rid and Patterson should play every week. And then you've got the other camp who, admire Tab, but because of, I think, camp one, they get too protective of him, which is understandable and laudable, right? It really is. But you can never, ever criticise Tab in their eyes. And I get that they're protective of him. Whereas I think the truth lies in the middle. Camp one, to me, no, you can't do that. You can't dismiss everything that the guy does. Are there weaknesses in his game? Yes. There always have been, there always will be, absolutely. But to constantly ignore the good things he's done and focus on that, I don't agree with. Equally, the people who focus on the good thing in his games and will not hear of any of the weaknesses in his game, I don't think that's particularly accurate either. To me, Tav, when he's at his best, he's first name in the team sheet. It's not even close. But he's not at his best. And the problem that we have is that for most positions on the pitch, we need to get more at Morelos. We need to get Kent in the team, regardless of how, really playing. You've got to try and get him back to form by hook or by crook. There is an option with Tav, a very, very good option. You don't even really have it at left back. Bassey is not Nathan Patterson. And that's the problem. And that's why this debate, whatever you want to call it, is going to rage on even, or rather up until Tav is delivering the way he can.
Yeah. So it's a good problem to have. Personally, I can't remember what it was, camp 1 and camp 2. I think I'm camp 2. Is that a good camp?
That's the don't criticise. There's the camp that criticise him for the fact that they ran out of pies in the is camp 1. Camp 2 is nothing is ever to be thrown in his direction. And look, these are the extremities. These aren't the majority. Most people are somewhere in the middle. But of course, social media, etc. It's camps 1 and 2 that are usually the loudest.
I'm camp 1.75. But so the goal. All right, you can say he left his man, but see if McGregor doesn't get that ball and Tavernier's glued to his man, you would say Tavernier's not attacking the ball, because what he was doing was manoeuvring himself for the flight of the ball to header it away if McGregor didn't beat it. So in that split second, I don't really blame, because if your goalkeeper makes a mistake like that, all bets are off. That's absolutely the bottom line.
That's my take on it as well. Goalkeeper should deal with it. If he deals with it, we'll not talk about it.
It's secondary. In terms of his form and Patterson, I don't think there's a decision to be made there just yet. I really don't, for two reasons. I would like to see Patterson bled in as Gerrard is doing just now. So if we have, I don't want to say lesser games, but you're playing teams, that you can maybe rotate a wee bit more than you could normally, I can see Patterson playing. Because I don't want to get too far ahead with this boy. I really don't, because we did this with Ross McCrory. I remember coming on his pod when I first started with you, David, and we're talking about Ross McCrory. I think it may be.
I got overexcited.
Yes, and you're an excitable guy. So we did this with him and future Scotland captain, future Rangers captain, sky's the limit, all the rest of it. Now, I think Patterson's the best prospect we've had for years, right? And he's obviously playing for Scotland and contributing. He's been at Euros, which is exceptional at his age for a player that's no first choice at his club. But by the same token, I think there's an element of protection which we need to apply if we're going to learn from past. Because he's not quite ready. If you want to play him 48, 50 games a season, he's going to have stinkers. And the folk that are slagging Tavernier for having a poor or a substandard game will have to apply the same kind of rationale to that, even though he's a boy. You're either ready or no. You don't get a free pass because you're a younger player. So I quite like to see him bled in as we're doing just now. And Tavernier himself, he's subpar, but I don't think he's like honking, I don't think him and Barisic are to the point where you're like, we need to drop them. I think they're just not playing as well as they could. But by the same token, last season, there were a couple of machines. And Barisic, to go back to the pre-season chat we had, Barisic basically didn't have a look in at Euro 2020 because he was carrying niggling injuries. I don't even think he was training with Croatia at points. And he's never really come in and did it this season, and except in flashes. But I did go on record as saying I'd prefer to have him than Bassey for the big games like the Celtic game, because doesn't matter how fit you are, you can still deliver a ball. And all it takes is for him to do that once or twice in a game, and it'll win you the game. It's quality over, exuberance and legs. So I don't think we're at a point where we throw the baby out with the bathwater with A2 and say, right, let's get Patterson in full time, abandon Tavernier, because you can't. I just don't think you can. I think it's far too early to say that that's his stage of career. No way. But if in January you get an offer for Tavernier, you're in a better position now to do the unthinkable. Because last year, if you say, right, sell Tavernier, you're like, no way. But everybody's got a shelf life. Everybody, sometimes things surprise you in football. If we get that kind of offer for Tavernier where you get a wee bit of money back, he gets the last big move of his career, and we've got Patterson to come in, then that might work for all parties. That's just a hypothetical thing I'm throwing in there. But Bassett is not ready to play every game for us. But we just isn't. I like him. He's got a lot of attributes. Physically, he's a specimen. Fitness-wise, he's great. Strength-wise, he's great. Quality-wise, he's not there yet. And I think to go for Barisic to Bassett full time would be a major drop off, and I regret if we went down that route. So that might not sit well with some folks. I think and Bassett is benefited for that same blind optimism that Patterson has when we get a young player through. He's either the best thing for sliced bread for 6 months and then he's shite, or else we don't see enough of them and they're just perennially brilliant in our minds. So I think your question's valid, Davey, but I think it's too early because are they costing us games? No. Are they contributing going forward? Not as much. Are they still the two best fullbacks we've got? I'd say yes, without question. The two centre halves are doing okay, but what really, really worries me is if we get one injury to either of those.
Yes.
I think we've got a major problem. I think Goldson gets the same treatment as Tavernier you're talking about there, Davey. As soon as he makes a mistake, even a minor mistake, all the barbs come back out. People that didn't like him after the Hamilton game, for example, a couple of seasons ago, all that nonsense comes out. Goldson's is integral to our defences, Morelos is to our attack. But what I don't like is I don't think Jack Simpson's ready to play 10, 15, 20 games for us. And that's a worry to me. And as we've seen in Prague, Bassey's not the answer.
It's not fair to ask Bassey to play there yet.
No,
he's not. I mean, I agree with you that he's not quite ready to be our first choice left back. He's certainly not ready to be our first choice centre back.
Positionally, he was all over the place.
Yeah.
One wee thing I want to throw in, David, just in case we miss it before we go off the game. See with Balogun. So him and Golson are obviously a threat at corner kicks, and these they've been quite fruitful for us in the past. See that one that Gordon made the triple save?
Yes.
Remember in the first half? I was watching the highlights again on Rangers TV. I implore anybody to go back and see if they agree with me that it was a penalty, because if Rangers TV's actually got an ability to slow it down at half speed. That's how technical I am, David.
Well done.
Suter has got his shirt from the edge of the penalty box to almost the goal line the whole way. I think it's a penalty. And I might be clutching at straws there, but it's not been mentioned. I've not seen it anywhere since Saturday. It was a penalty.
I must admit I didn't know this, but I'll go back and have another look at that. One last thing, just before we move on. Now, this is going to happen because of his age. That any time Alan McGregor makes a mistake, you'll hear people say, is it time to start moving on? That's an age thing. It happens to all older players. It's just a fact. And I don't agree with it, incidentally. If he's making one every week, we need to talk, but he hasn't been. However, Andrew, I'm an old-fashioned gentleman. I grew up when Rangers played 4-4-2, big man, wee man up front, one winger, one right-sided midfielder. That's how Rangers should play. I don't care about your 4-3-3s and your 3-4-3s and any of this shite. But no, all joking aside, one of the things that, though, I did get told, I suppose, growing up by people within football, your Souness's, Walters and whatnot, is you don't change your goalkeeper unless you have to. Mm-hmm. Is that a thing? Is that an issue?
I've alluded to that in previous pods. The switching about the goalkeepers it's not a natural thing, I don't think. And I've not really seen any good come from it when I've seen it at other clubs. I like McLaughlin. I think he's actually far better with the ball at his feet and his distribution. And Saturday distribution was a big question. I know why McGregor slowed things down second half, but there was opportunities there. And he's been super competent for us. Is he as good as McGregor? No. But to answer your question, because players get older, do you need to rotate them? They know the medical details better than we do, Davey. So we don't know if McGregor's carrying me knocks here or there, and we're keeping him for the European games or the bigger league games. And certainly there's no reason not to play McLaughlin if that's the case, because he's a totally able deputy. But I'm a great believer in you play players as often as possible, without compromising them physically. I think that's the way I would put it. And with McGregor, does he do a lot for us? He makes great saves, but it's not as if he's not running 13 kilometres every game. At some players, he's not putting in challenges and physical knocks and stuff like that. So it's a different consideration for a goalkeeper than an outfield player for me. I don't really want to see the goalkeepers get rotated. That's the God's honest truth. I'd prefer to see McGregor in there every time he's fit. The mistake on Saturday is nothing to me. I mean, we're old enough, Davey. Remember Andy McGowan throwing man in the net at Pataudry? Remember?
Yes.
And at that point, we were saying he's the best goalkeeper in the world. So just as Morelos had an aberration Saturday, that was an aberration for McGregor. And a touch wood here. I'm looking for wood. You'll probably wait a long time to see the same again from him.
I hope so, and I think so, because nobody will be more annoyed than him. I can just imagine him picking up the phone immediately after the game, phoning Sasa Papats and shouting at him. Natural reaction there from Alan. But yeah, agreed. Now, moving on then, Andy, we obviously have a big match coming up on Thursday against Brondby. It's must win. I was going to say, sometimes you get must wins, sometimes you get must not lose. This is must win. I don't think we've any chance of coming out the group, even with 1 point from this. I think we have absolutely categorically got to get a victory here.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, it was always, when we looked at the group, I think we were being too optimistic to think we could top it. And I personally underestimated Leon. I think it was foolish of me in the first instance to think, you might top this and get into that the last 16 straight away, is it? There was a bye kind of scenario, wasn't there?
Mm.
And so realistically, we're always playing for second here, and we need to beat Brondby home and away, I think.
I think so too.
To progress. I think they're having what I've seen at Sparta Prague as bad as we were. I think Brondby should be better than them, and that's your main rivals for that second spot. So major game. I think Saturday, as bad as the result was, I think the team and the manager should be taking confidence from it. We are a good team in Europe, although this season that's not really been the case. We have a bit of credit in the bank there, so we should be going there with confidence. I think these are our natural peers. When we talk about Champions League, Conference, Europa, I think we're at the level we should be just now. That's my God's honest opinion. I think that playing teams like Brondby, Sparta, that's the level we're at, if we're being really, really honest. And budget-wise, that's our peers. And going forward, I think that's always going to be the case unless something remarkable happens. So we really need to be winning these games. Be interested to see how he sets up. The midfield, as you say, played really well on Saturday. I want to see Aribo in the front three. I want to see him doing what he does best in the last third. But who do you bring in for the midfield? That's the thing, because Davis and Lundstrom, as I said, isn't quite. I can't see the two of them playing together. And you can't move Davis out to the right. He's not got the legs for that anymore.
Yeah, it just doesn't. So, no, I totally agree on that. I don't think that Kamara or Lundstrom did anything to suggest they shouldn't be on the side.
Not at all.
At the weekend, on Thursday rather, but we do have a game obviously Sunday, and it's a big game. We've got to win that. So there's some selection dilemmas ahead for the manager. Just before then, we finish up. We'll move to off the pitch matters. And last week, Rangers released the 150th anniversary kit, the fourth kit from Castoa. It's modelled on the famous 1876 photograph. The white kit, the white rowing kit, actually. Again, as I'm sure you will have known people, because there were a lot of people complaining that it wasn't like for like in terms of having the blue star on it. That kit was never a Rangers kit. It was never worn by Rangers in a match. It was a rowing kit they borrowed for the photograph. But it's still an iconic image in Rangers history, so I don't think there was anything wrong with basing a kit off it. And the reaction from most people, I think, was incredibly positive. It's selling very well. The club announced late last week, and most people I know like it. Some don't, but that's human nature. You know, that's going to happen. I think after that Lilac atrocity, I suppose my expectations weren't high, so I was very happy with it. But Rangers released a promotional video for it. I found very moving, actually. It was the Rangers fan Drew McIntyre, who's a WWE wrestler, provided the narration for it, and didn't think anything of it, really. The 4 lads had a dream, a piano version of that playing in the background. And then, nothing untoward happened. And then the next day, within about 20 minutes of each other, Jeanette Finlay of the Celtic Supporters Trust tweeted that this was Rangers were using the famine song. A BBC journalist from the BBC Scotland journalist from the 9 show tweeted an agreement of this. Michael Stewart piled in behind that. And then Nil by Mouth released a statement, all of whom saying this song is a famine song and it's racist and why are Rangers using it? And of course, we're immediately and utterly battered down, not only, I have to say, by Rangers fans, but by non-Rangers fans saying this is ridiculous, this is manufactured outrage, why do we keep doing this? Rangers fans sing this song every week, there's nothing but a positive message in it, this is just ludicrous, right? Great. But again, it was the coordination of it that was so obvious. 24 hours, nothing at all of a sudden they all go as one within 20 minutes of each other, Andy. Mm-hmm. The really disheartening thing is that this is not something they've seen that caused offence. This is them sitting together saying, we need to find something to have a go at Rangers about. Right, we'll try this. And this was such a reach for them that it was instantly and utterly laughable, and people pointed this out to them, which is why it's gone quiet. Incidentally, it's why you didn't hear it get pushed any further, because they basically went, we made a mistake with that, we don't want to go any further on it. Again, let's go back to the starting point in this. For people who don't think that there's an agenda, it was Jeanette Finlay, IRA supporting Celtic Supporters Trust member, who started this, and that's where it got picked up from. It wasn't picked up from, trust me, they knew what the role was next. That surely should be a red flag to anybody who purports to be neutral.
Majorly sinister. Any normal society, this would be, well, it has been laughed at, but we're living in a kind of post-Trump world now where people know, it matters more to say it than actually what it means. And even if it doesn't get traction, it's still worth saying because it's out there. And then the other side of that is that some people know that they can say whatever they like and there's no repercussions professionally or any other, nothing happens to them. And particularly in Scotland, let's not get too political, Davey, because I know it sometimes boils over, but SNP are master of that. They've learned from their Irish counterparts and they play that playbook to a T. And Michael Stewart coming out with that and trying to, perpetuate something that is just so preposterous and laughable, and to any sane person that actually has the insight to anything remotely close to Rangers, it's just bonkers. And the fact that, as you say, it's Janet Finlay's kind of led the charge with it. The fact that somebody that has, questionable opinions in the past, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, but by the same token, you need to look at our body evidence that's behind her and say, right, is this the person that we should be listening to in terms of that thorny topic, which is sectarianism in Scotland and Scottish football? I couldn't believe what I was reading. I really asked, you're joking me. Is this where we're at? But it actually does more damage because you're never, ever going to get engagement with the people that they're trying to speak to. So we do have a minority of idiots. Like any major football club that has a support of our size, you are going to carry loonies, and you're going to have folk that just don't get it and do things that they shouldn't be doing. But this injures that debate because you're never going to sit down at the table and debate it now, because you're going to say, well, why should we even go close to this when this is the level of intellect that's applied? You know, people give credence to Michael Stewart. People give credence to nil by mouth. I think they're funded by the government, they get grants. So why on earth should we engage with this when this is the kind of the rules of play? The last thing I'll say about it is, right, we had a problem with the famine song, I don't know, 12 years ago, something like that. Yeah. I didn't like it then, I don't like it now. I thought it was needless, it was ignorant, it was totally contrary to the true Irish history, you know. If I want to get down to brass tacks, the famine affected people on our side of the fence, so to speak, as well as the Irish Catholic side. So nobody has a dominance or on the Irish famine. But we repaired that song by creating the song "Four Lads Had a Dream," which is an exceptionally beautiful football song, which, as you said, David, is quite emotional when you hear it, and it means something. It means something to me. It means something to Rangers fans that listen to it and are listening to this podcast today. And for it to be, you know, trashed and conflated with the famine song tells a story. They're trying to destroy us. They just don't want us in Scotland because we stand for something that the likes of Michael Stewart doesn't want in Scotland. And you can take this debate further, Davey, about political aims and everything else. That is the underlying unspoken truth. And this is just another wee poke at it. I'm disgusted with it. I'm disgusted at BBC Scotland because I have been watching the complaint scenario with Michael Stewart. That's a guy that's employed by BBC Scotland to commentate supposedly impartially on Rangers. And how can that be? You can't compartmentalise that kind of hatred of Rangers and then go on Scottish sports scene this Saturday or Sunday and talk about Rangers with objectivity. It's not possible.
Totally agree. And, you know, it's here's something, though, that people have kind of said to me in the past about what we need to do and whatnot. What we need to do is what we did with this, which is just stand collectively together and say no. The way that, you know, and the club did as well when they just immediately started tweeted out, you know, "Four Lads Had a Dream" lyrics all day. What you do is, if you keep running away from them, then that gives them the space to operate in. Whereas if you just stand firm and say, no, we're not taking this, then there's nowhere for them to go. And that's when they start having to do ridiculous things like this and complaining to each other because we as a support won't take it. Now, you're right about it going out into the mainstream, but again, I think there's always this thing with Rangers fans. They say, but, you know, this great neutral mass that we've got to get to, it doesn't exist. In Scotland, there's people who love Rangers, people who hate Rangers, and then there's people who don't give a toss. That's it. Right? And the people who love us, and the people who hate us. And they're the only ones that are involved. The rest just think it's football nonsense.
Yeah.
The issue with people like this, I feel, is that, as you say, they're so blinded by their hatred of us, and it is their hatred of us that they use they invent things about us to justify that hatred, so that they can believe that they're liberal, so that they can believe that they're still very right on. And the level of courage of these people, a few weeks ago during Daily Record Gate, Michael Stewart on Twitter publicly challenged me to a debate, and when I said yes, like his heroes, he ran away. So you know, that's the kind of level. They don't want to be challenged in debate because they know that they're going to lose because they're not coming from a logical position on it. But you and I sat in a meeting with Nil by Mouth 15 years ago when we were at the Trust, and he said to us, you need to change your songbook. So here's an example of Rangers having changed their songbook. Oh, it's still no good enough. And that's it. If we keep running, they'll keep chasing. Nothing will ever be enough. You can't appease hatred. You have to stand up to it. And I think that's what we did at the weekend, and that's what we'll continue to do. Now, does that lead to a better society? Probably not. No, it doesn't. It doesn't lead to an end of division. But what can we do about it? We're not interested in that. And in division, but equally, if you've got people who are just resolutely out against you, all you can do is stand firm and stand firm as a group. And I think that's what we need to do. Right, folks, that will do us for Heart and Hand this week. You can always hear more from us over on our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Heart and Hand, just $1.99 per month still. And you'll be able to get up to 5 shows every day on all things Rangers. My thanks to Andy for what's been. I've thoroughly enjoyed this discussion. Andy, thank you.
Thanks for having me on, Davey. Always a pleasure.
We'll be back on Friday this week to review the Brondby game and look ahead to St Mirren. So until then, enjoy your week and let's hope for 3 points in the Europa League on Thursday. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.